My name is Ida, and I met this amazing man, and we hadn't been together for very long, maybe a year and a half, and we decided that we wanted to become parents, and we put in our best efforts, but nothing happened for a year, and we realized that we might need some help. And so what we did was that Emma's dad decided to volunteer as a sperm donor, and because that was the quickest way to get examined, and he of course now, as we are here, failed that test miserably and had very, very few sperm cells. So and that led us into an odyssey of different fertility treatments and different losses and new decisions. We started just with inseminations, that didn't work. Then we tried donor inseminations, that didn't work. Then we tried IVF with Henning sperm, that didn't work. Then was IVF with donor sperm, that didn't work. And then the very last egg from the very last treatment, we had given up and decided to opt for adoption, and we're halfway through that. Then the last little frozen down egg was to be cleaned out of the freezer, and that was transferred back, and that ended up being Emma.
So yeah, I think you guys have been very interested in the choices. I did a Q&A a couple of days ago, and we have the questions, and we'll try to answer some of them. And maybe we should say that this process that you just talked about was
6 years.
6 years?
Yeah. Yes. From we began to start a family and until you were there.
Yeah. So yeah, as some of you might know, very long and not very easy process to go through. So maybe we should take a look at some of the questions that people sent. So it says, how long did it take you to come to terms with using a sperm donor?
So I think that that was actually a lot of grief, but it didn't take so long. So because we were relatively rational about that Henning's, your father's sperm count was so low that our chances of conceiving would be really, really slim without that help. So I think maybe it took us months, but something like that.
Yeah, okay, so not very long actually.
No, a lot of thoughts and a lot of grief, but it didn't take that long.
Yeah. And someone's asked, how did your mom, navigate having a daughter who is donor conceived and twins who are non-donor conceived?
Well, we just tried to be open and love our best through it, and sort of always tried to talk about it. So we generated this book for you, and then we generated a book for the twins, trying to explain the differences, and then we have dealt with the questions when they have arrived, just making sure that there was a knowledge and a dialogue that could be continued in some way.
Yeah, and I think that Esther and Iris, the twins, and I have never really felt that there was very much of a difference between us. I think we've always known that I was donor conceived, but we've never thought of it as something that had an impact on our relationship or how we were as a family more my situation than it being a family related thing, I think, until we were a bit older. Yeah.
And maybe something that was not very present in everyday life.
Yeah. So Someone's asked if you have received any negative feedback from me being donor conceived, or the choices that you had to make at that point.
I think mostly silence. At that time, infertility was not something that you talked a lot about, and especially it was. So I think mostly the silence, really, that people didn't understand how big a grief it was for us and why. So they're sort of always sort of saying, "Oh, you should celebrate these lovely years as newlyweds," and you're just. Can you try to grieve a little along with us, or at least acknowledge that this is difficult? So, but not very. Not actually, I think, until you became so open about being donor conceived, and then I've received those negative comments in secondhand.
Yeah, because I think most of you who follows this Instagram account knows that I sometimes also do receive a bit of negative feedback, but I think that is always a part of being open and talking about a sensitive subject as infertility and donor conception is to many people.
I just saw a question, Emma, that someone asked if the twins were also donor conceived. So you were donor conceived, but over that time it became possible to do ICSI, so that you just harvest 1 or 2 sperms and then push them into the egg. So they are biologically Henning's children, and you all have Henning as a father.
Yeah. Okay. So someone's asked me what my feelings towards my donor is, and I've answered this before, but my feelings towards my donor, they are very, I think of him as a nice man who did something very unselfish, and I'm very, very grateful towards him, but I don't think of him very much, and I don't I don't have very many feelings about him other than I'm really grateful towards him, I think.
Yeah. And grateful for what he has made possible for us, but also grateful that he is not here.
Yeah.
He's not a part of our family. I think now, when you're an adult, I could cope with him here, but it would have been very hard when you were a child. But of course, things change over time. Now we've become more used to that being options also. Choices would probably have been different today.
Yeah. So, someone's asked me if it was difficult to understand your mother's choice, and obviously this would be both your and dad's choice, but I've never felt like it was hard to understand your choice, as it was, I've always seen it as necessary, and I've always felt very lucky and very happy that I'm me, and that I have you guys as a family. I don't think I've thought of the choice very much, because that was just a part of, otherwise I wouldn't have been here.
No, so, we would have, if we had not become pregnant with that very egg, we would have adopted.
Yeah. Okay.
But on the other hand, it was one of my greatest fears that you would not understand, and that's why we generated the book, trying to sort of think of, I was always afraid. We realized that this was a difficult choice. And then we thought of what could be the worst outcome that could happen. And the worst thing that could happen to me was that you would become so angry with us over our choice that you would leave us.
Yeah.
So it was a very selfish, self-protecting decision to make the book, but trying to explain to you why we were forced in that situation.
And it turned out to be a very good thing
for you,
for me as well.
Yes. But I must admit I did it for me. Yeah. Trying to tie you to my life, making sure you would stay.
Okay, someone's asked how you opened up to others about it, and how you got comfortable sharing your struggles.
That has become easier as the situation solved itself, and you know, I think that it was very hard being open about the infertility and the continued losses and failures, but it has not been hard to be open about donor. It just was a necessity. We talked about our problems. It would have been strange all of a sudden to come and say, oh, now we're pregnant and all is good. It would have been really strange. So, and I never could imagine having told anyone something that important about you and not having told you about it. That would have been a deceit, I think.
Okay. Yeah, how long were you trying to conceive before you decided on a donor? You've answered that.
There was also some questions here.
Can you share about how you first started to introduce the fact that your child was donor conceived? And thank you for your comment.
So when Emma was about 6 months, maybe a year, I started to make this children's book, and making a very simple story about that we needed help, and a nice man helped us, and how we got pregnant, and but also with a preface of the book where I wrote a letter to Emma as an adult, trying to sort of reach her at different stages in her life, and then we just started reading that book with pictures of us and of other kids in the extended family, and then it just came about. We don't know when you understood.
No. And then we just talked about it whenever there was something if I had questions, or if I met someone who had asked me something, or I've experienced something, then we've all just talked about it, and then I've maybe just understood a bit more.
You've always been a little bit proud of it.
Yeah.
As something where you stood out. You had a very special, very wanted.
And thank you for all your amazing comments. We'll try to read them as we go along here. So also I just wanted to comment and say that I've made a video where I share the book my parents made, so you can go to my profile and see that as an IGTV. Good.
And we never knew that it was important. You know, it was just, I wouldn't call it random, because it was trying to get rid of the worst case scenarios, but it wasn't something that we had realized would be such a positive thing. It became such a positive thing, talking about you and how we had treasured that you came about.
And I think that is one thing that is maybe a bit special, this trying to rule out what was the worst thing. Maybe you can explain a bit more about that, because that was also one of the reasons, as I've understood, for you to tell me that I was donor conceived from the beginning.
Yes. So I always worried that you wouldn't understand, and not knowing how to do this, I just thought I need to explain this to Emma as a child, and I need to explain this to Emma as an adult. So if we have this crisis, she will maybe at least have the book. If she won't talk to me, she can have the book, or she can have heard the story so many times, so maybe we can soothe the problems before they become really old and ancient. So it was just a rational way of trying to minimize the risk that you would leave. You would become so angry and so disappointed that you would leave.
Hmm.
Mm.
Hmm. So there's a question about the donor and how you decided which donor to choose. Did that play a role in your conversation about how you were conceived? So it was a different time back then,
Yes.
and only anonymous sperm donors were a possibility at that time. So there wasn't really a choice. But yeah, I don't know.
And I think that I might not really remember it anymore, but we went through so many treatments. I think that there's probably been many donors.
Mhm.
We were in a private, we were in a public, so it's probably been many donors, and we don't know which one.
Mhm.
And so they tried at that time to match with physical looks, so that he had the same colors and size as your father.
Mhm.
But apart from that, we've just always thought of him as a kind, helpful person. And then we've cherished when we could see that there were parts of you that weren't any of us.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
and we've sort of acknowledged that he has contributed.
And tried not to make it. I've never felt that it was negative. It was only just something that was very much me, because it was something that was different in some way.
Yeah. Who would have chosen my mouth when you can have something as beautiful as Emma's?
No, that's the same comment. So someone's also written, I sometimes get nervous that my future child will feel disconnected from me. So it's not really a question, but maybe we could comment a bit on it as well. So I can say from my point of view, I've never felt like that, but I can understand why you would have that fear. And
it's also been a fear for me, both in trying to conceive, but also when you were growing up, when there were periods of hardship for you, as there is in any childhood. I was always afraid, if that could be an issue. So, like, when you're 11 and really a pest,
yeah,
it was also important to remember that you might need a different support in not feeling alone and disconnected. Because, so even when you're irritated, I always had that in me, that I needed to make sure that you could feel that we were there.
Yeah. So do you have an impact on how... So when feelings are... When you do have a lot of feelings in something, in some situation, I think it would pop up in your mind, and you would somehow think of it.
It is, I think, a lifelong price. It's just not very big, but it is there, and it always, to some extent. And I think it is that both for you and for us. And,
I think so too, yeah.
But it can be overcome, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so here's a question where someone asked if why is it better to know from the beginning than being older, and how your friends at school reacted. So I guess that is a question for me. And I think that I can't say that I can say that studies show that it is better to be honest from the beginning. Also, I think it's easier for the parents in most situations, because there isn't a time where you have to sit down and have a difficult conversation. You can have it eventually, and the child will understand at some point, but it won't be such a big deal, and it won't feel as big, maybe. So I think that would, for me, that is why I can imagine that it is really important. And so the other question about how friends at school has reacted, I think from other kids I haven't really experienced anything negative related to being donor conceived. I think most children really hasn't understood because I was just me. And
I remember the one day you came home and someone had said to you that you did not look like your father.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. They sort of got under your skin that day. Because I think it was also the intention was to hurt you in some way.
So it was because they obviously knew that I was donor conceived, and they said that it didn't look like him.
Yeah.
And actually, it is true.
Yeah.
I do not look very much like him, but yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember that as well. That it was. I think it also was a time where I was very focused on how I looked and how where was the resemblance to you, and also what might be from the donor. So I think it was also the timing maybe. But other than that, I really haven't experienced being bullied or any bad comments related to me being donor conceived at all. I think people didn't understand.
I'm laughing because you've always been so outspoken about everything. So it's,
yeah. So I had an experience with a teacher one time that didn't believe, because it was in kindergarten and I was explaining why I couldn't do a family tree, and she obviously thought that I was lying.
Your
because
teacher,
it wasn't normal to know that much about family trees and inheritance, and so I think she thought it was very odd.
Yes, she called us that afternoon and asked us why you were making up such stories about being special, because you felt that you were special, that you had received, that this was unique, contributing to your uniqueness. Yes, so she questioned why you couldn't just be like all the others doing this family tree.
Yeah. I just couldn't.
No. Also, again, interesting how you're asking children to compensate for the knowledge of teachers.
Yeah.
Maybe teachers should listen, or maybe we all should listen when children say something.
Yeah. Oh, there's someone who's asked if you were afraid that I would be angry with you.
Yes.
I think you have answered that. What does it say? At what point did you tell family members during pregnancy, when trying to conceive, or once I was born?
We told my mother, who's also a very extrovert person. She drove down to our house. We were not pregnant at the time, and we were in grief over the hardship we had with infertility. And she sat down in our sofa and she said, "Now you tell me what is wrong. Does one of you have HIV or is dying from cancer, or what is it?" So that was cards on the table that day, and and then once you said it once, it's easier to say it the second time, I think.
Okay, so there's also a question here. Is if there's something you would wish that you've known or realized sooner about the whole process?
I wish we had known that we would have children, that there would be an end to the troubles. And I wish that I had, and that's why I'm so grateful you're telling your story and helping other couples in that difficult time, because there weren't any stories then. We didn't know what to do. We just tried our best.
Yeah. Luckily, it turned out to be okay.
Yeah, and I think that the good intentions is the best. There are probably many roads to take, but the good intentions is the main thing in trying to making it work. And the honesty.
Yes, I believe in honesty as well. So I'll just try to see if we have any comments up here. My son is stone conceived. Thank you for sharing. Do you think there's a good age to start discussing about how he was conceived?
I think we covered that already.
I think so too. I am a single mother with donor and I'm grateful about this. My daughter is the best gift in my life.
Mine too.
As a mother, I have some of the same fears as your mother. Glad to know it's normal to have these thoughts.
Yes.
Yeah, that's also why we're doing this live today, to share some of your thoughts and your...
My anxiety for...
Yeah.
And they do grow up to be healthy, positive, successful children in the end.
Someone's asked me about the book, if it has been published, and it has been published, yes. It is on Amazon, and I have a link in my bio, so you should be able to find it through there. And and the question about the twins, we've answered that. And then there's just our dad saying he's watching and that we look amazing. And someone who's saying hi from France, and someone who's a single mother. I'm so happy that so many people are watching this. It's just amazing that you find it interesting, and I hope that we have answered some of all of your questions. I will post this as in IGTV, and you can just comment if you have something, and then I will try to answer it, or I will send it over to my mom so that she can give an answer to that.
And hope you all have lots of children. And just keep working at it.
Okay, so I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for participating in my Instagram live. I think it's
You're very welcome.
Great for everyone to hear your side of the story as well. Okay, thank you everyone. See you.
Bye.